It's our belief that one day Mujahideen will have victory and Islamic law will come not to just Afghanistan, but all over the world. We are not in a hurry. We believe it will come one day. Jihad will not end until the last day.
It's a chilling admission from a group that claims it wants peace, despite continuing a bloody offensive.
Wow, CNN reported some truth. The Taliban and their Islamist brothers are out to conquer the world. They said it themselves, and they are patient, very patient. They have been waiting thousands of years for this, and they are not embarrassed to be public about their plan of thousands of years and their patience. It is our Western leaders who are failing us, ignoring the truth even when our enemies say it out loud. Why do our Western leaders ignore the ultimate plan of the Islamic jihadis, which is to conquer us all in the law of Sharia? Because our Western leaders only think about today, what they have to do to get reelected, how to get the best headlines today, and to get the public support to get reelected. Hence, they repeatedly ignore the evil plans of the Islamists, who are on the march, just conquering a pivotal country to turn into a terror base and further terrorize humanity, all in the name of Islam and the Sharia law. But there is much more to this, much more. Folks, as you know, social media censorship is growing. The best way to support our video work for Israel is to subscribe to our video newsletter on pulseofisrael.com and to share our videos. If you are already a subscriber, then thank you. First of all, before we return to Afghanistan and the Biden fiasco, giving over Afghanistan to this Taliban takeover, let's focus a minute on Israel. Remember the infamous Oslo Peace Accord signed back in 1993 between the Jewish state of Israel and the terrorist organization PLO led by arch-terrorist Yasser Arafat? We were all told back then that the Oslo peace process would bring peace, that signing a peace deal with one of the worst terrorists ever, Arafat, who had the most Jewish blood on his hands in our modern times, that was the best thing for a peaceful future in the Middle East. Well, didn't bring peace, brought much more terror. Just months after that peace agreement, Arafat spoke to a mosque in Johannesburg, South Africa, and said this.
This agreement, I'm not considering it more than the agreement which had been signed between our Prophet Muhammad and Quraysh. And you remember, Khalifa Umar had refused this agreement and considering it sulh al-daniyya, but Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam had accepted it, and we are accepting now this peace accord.
This was just months after the peace agreement was signed. So why did Arafat sign that peace accord? What was this peace accord really about? Well, Arafat is equating the Oslo Peace Accords with Muhammad's Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when Muhammad made a treaty with the Quraysh tribe who were Jews who lived in the city of Mecca because Muhammad couldn't beat them in battle. So Muhammad instead made a peace treaty to weaken the Jewish enemy and then attack them several years later when Muhammad's army was stronger and the Jewish tribe was surprised. So basically, this is not a model peace treaty, but an Islamic strategy to conquer an enemy with peace deals. And this is exactly what this person tweeted after President Biden allowed the Taliban to take control of Afghanistan. Quote, from Iran to Hamas, al-Hudaybiyah is their true belief. Even Arafat mentioned it after Oslo, as we just discussed. You can and should wait your enemy out until you are eventually strong enough to conquer them, and then it is your duty to do so. That is within Islam. That's Islamic doctrine. So the Taliban waited out the Americans. The Muslims are waiting out Israel and the freedom-loving West to conquer us all when they are strong enough, while our Western leaders appease our Muslim enemies time after time, showing weakness and weakening our countries. I've been saying this for years, that if the freedom-loving West does not stand by Israel against Israel's Islamic terrorist enemies, then those Islamists will use those same tactics against the freedom-loving world. So instead, the freedom-loving West has pressured Israel time after time to appease our Islamist enemies, and they are also making inroads against the West, following the tactics that they've been using against Israel. As I explained before, we can't rely on politicians. We have to rely on God above and ourselves in spreading the truth and standing up for ourselves. And returning to Biden's horrific foreign policy tragedy with Afghanistan, just listen to this.
And I think people are going to look on this as being a greater foreign policy disaster than Vietnam. I truly think we have no idea the severity of the repercussions of what has just happened. And it was totally avoidable. This is an own goal. We could have kept a very small international force there to ensure that the Afghan military didn't collapse, but we've chosen not to. And the most heartbreaking thing is a humanitarian disaster.
Yep, Afghanistan is a greater foreign policy disaster than Vietnam. Even scarier than the global implications of the U.S. administration handing over a country to the most extreme Islamist jihadist society on the planet is the humanitarian crisis that President Biden and his administration, including Secretary of State Blinken, just created. And this administration touts itself as an administration that cares about human rights. Well, this Biden human rights administration just abandoned the Afghan people and doomed the whole Afghan population to horrific Islamist persecution at the hands of the Taliban. And that is so sad. And no, U.S. forces in Afghanistan were not there to create a Western democracy, but to stop the Taliban from taking over the country and turning it into an Islamist terror state, which is exactly what will happen now if the U.S. does not risk more lives of armed forces to lose those lives and retake control of Afghanistan once again. So for Israel, the lesson is clear. We can't trust the Biden administration or any administration with our lives. We can only trust the one above and ourselves for protection. Because bottom line, administrations change in governments and countries. Policies change. Years can go by and we in Israel must not rely on promises of any president or any administration. We can never endanger our lives by relying on the diplomatic promises of a friend or ally. No matter how good at any given moment, we always have to be prepared to rely on ourselves. As Professor Eugene Kantorovich tweeted so eloquently, Israelis and other U.S. allies should pay attention to the fall of Kabul. Americans will ask you to make brave sacrifices for peace and promise to ensure your security. They'll make you stick your neck out and then leave you alone. Everyone. How do we deal with this? Strengthen your faith in the one above. Stand up for the truth and help us here at the Pulse of Israel share the truth. Hold on to your hope and hold on to your faith. We will prevail. And stay connected to the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel. We're all on the same side for freedom, life, justice, and God.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.